Hello and welcome to another Kerbal Space Program IVA video. Today we are going to take a crewed mission to Minmus and back. We have a couple contracts to do. We're actually going to grab a couple more here in a second. This is a voiceover after the fact. So let's look at some contracts real fast that we have. We're going to go into the mission control and grab a couple more. It's always a good idea before taking a mission out to any celestial bodies to grab whatever contracts that might be relevant. So like this one right here, the orbit and return. This one, enter into space. We have entered into space before, but we have not returned any of our probes because they ended up being satellites. So we took that one as well. We've also got this contract that's currently underway. We're about 40 some odd percent here and 50% there of scanning the moon and Kerbin. So land on Minmus is the main contract we're doing, but we're also going to be returning some science from that. So let's go ahead and get building. I'm going to do a time lapse here just to, speed up time. This whole build took about 30 minutes. I kind of had the idea of what I wanted in mind, so it was nice to just get it done with. Here's our music as we go along. So I thought about bringing a scientist to do all the experiments twice, but then I thought, why don't I just do 2 experiments? I am cheating a little bit with the tweak scale and clipping parts into each other, but I wanted to make this compact and everything. I didn't realize until after the fact that I am still playing with TAC life support. I just kind of forgot about that, so I could have actually replaced the Science Juniors with life support instead, which probably would have been a little more fair to the mission. That's the only part that I feel like I kind of cheated. What's those Science Juniors, because they're supposed to be huge, but I made them small. So now we're working on our selfie stick cam. Since we're going to be doing this in internal view, it's nice to have an external view that we can still access to look at our craft. So here I'm just working up on the robotics. Then this is the cam. It's from Hullcam's VVS. So I gotta get it to point, and then now I'm just adjusting the angles of the robotic arms so that way they always go to the right position. And then the angle of the servo. There we go. So very simplified selfie cam. I've done definitely more complicated ones with that, but I just wanted a little something small. Now I'm working on the landing stage. I had a couple issues while I was building where I couldn't click on parts. It was a bug, but I don't know what happened there or how to replicate it. Just every now and then it was hard to click on parts. So now I'm setting up some action stages, and as you see I'm typing in the description to give myself labels when I go in IVA. It's very important to write out your labels right there in the description. So the action groups that I have, number 1 is deploying, number 2 is the camera, number 3 and 4 are science, and number 5 is the descent. Now I'm just putting in the science so that way I can just hit one action group and it will run one of each of the experiments. So now I'm going to be building the rocket, but I realized the fairings were too much. So I put these, but it ended up in that weird little position. So how I solved it is I put a hinge on the side, and so when the hinge is extended, it'll be the right side. So when it's retracted, as you can see, the fairing can go over it without it clipping through. I don't like things clipping through a fairing. So there we go. Got our payload. Just doing a little bit of math right here. That's why I waited. I wanted to make sure and got my status set up. So I want to make sure that I had enough to do everything that I wanted to do. This rocket was scheduled to do a secondary biome landing on Minmus. We were going to grab 2 different biomes, but due to time constraints, we only ended up doing one. Therefore, the top stage, the landing stage, was a little over engineered. I probably didn't need those Oscar tanks, but I didn't know at the time, so I wanted to make sure that I had enough. So now I'm just doing a little auto strutting. It's not too intense of a craft that I really feel like I need it, but you know, better safe than sorry. Side boosters on, liquid fuel with a fuel duct going through. The engine, the main engine at the bottom is the Pila engine that's from Ven's stock revamp, or stock parts or something like that, I can't remember. This is the point where I remembered that I needed life support. So I just kind of stacked them right on there. I didn't pay attention, and I see now that it was clipping through the fairing. So I didn't quite like that. But yeah, here's the rocket in all of its glory. We have Valentina piloting today, because I enjoy Valentina. Anytime I want to do something important, I choose Valentina. Jeb is great for testing. So yeah, so now I'm getting all my screens set up, my orbiting information, my camera over here. At the end, I put a secondary camera on there to capture the ascent stage, the rockets separating. Turned all my warnings on. However, one of the warnings I think I forgot to turn on. So over here, turn it on chatter. I'm doing quick save. And then without further ado, I think all I need to do is turn on the SAS, throttle up, and stage. There we go, we have liftoff. Yeah, so now it's just taking off, just watching our numbers, making sure that we don't stray on the nav ball, and just slowly lift up. The side boosters are going to be taking a direct ascent, so I'm not going to do my gravity turn until after I get rid of them. This isn't the most efficient flight that you could possibly do. If you're going to use this to do your own IVA mission, just understand that I didn't take the most efficient route. So go ahead and stage the separation. You can see a clean separation right there. And so now we just start slowly tilting ourselves over. May look like we're moving very fast, but that's only because the video is sped up a little bit. So we are going very slowly just to make sure we don't tip. The thing though is my acceleration, my thrust is a little too high, and so as we see soon, end up raising my apoapsis a little faster than I would have liked. I would have liked to be a little higher in the atmosphere before killing the throttles, but yeah, just another little quick save now that since the first stage was separated. That way we don't have to do that again, just in case anything happens. Alright, so now our apoapsis is 104, but we're only at 29 kilometers above the surface, so that's not high enough to start turning towards the horizon. So as I said, I ended up accelerating a little too much. So what I'm doing now is I'm just giving the engine a little bit of throttle, not too much, but I just want to keep the forward momentum so I don't end up flipping over. And then once I hit 40 kilometers as my altitude, you can see in the screen over there in the right, in the middle of it, right at the top, it says altitude. Once I hit around 40, that's when I turn towards the horizon. I'm looking at our orbit info. So I killed the throttle, and now we're just floating up. and I'm using NetJeb to program in circularization. And you can see Balance is having a heck of a time. So yeah, so we switch into our internal cam, and we stage off the fairing, and then we go for a quick save, and then we set out our camera. Nice little view of it spinning around, looking at our ship. And now it's time to deploy. So that's our solar panels, our antennas, our landing gear now gets positioned into place, and the service bay opens up. You don't need it open to do the science, but I like the realism of just having it, all the science experiments exposed to space instead of hidden in the service bay. So now we're just doing our circularization burn. We want to make sure that we pay attention to the numbers on the side, because the numbers in IVA mode are a little delayed. They don't, at least in my playthrough, maybe if you have a beefier computer, it'll be a little more real time, but it's slow, so we want to make sure that we don't overshoot. The flight computer that I programmed it into didn't actually burn the whole way, so right now I'm flipping on a SAS and then pointing prograde so I can take over on the burn manually. And I'm a little bit past my apoapsis, so right now I'm trying to lift my nose, basically, so I just burn upwards a little bit as well, or away from the planet, I should say, not necessarily upwards. Because, as we all know or may not know, there is no direction in space. There's only relative direction, or relative positioning. So if you see over there in the bottom right, you can see our periapsis, the PEA, that's raising 45, 60, 50, 60, there we go. So we're going to try to just circleize it as best. So, we're about 45 off, but that doesn't matter too much. It's still in the hundreds, so we're safe. So now I'm using Astrogator to plot maneuver to head over to Minmus. I don't change my inclination at all, which, I don't know why I didn't do that. I just kind of rushed ahead and did that, but it managed to find a maneuver that got me there, even though I didn't do the inclination change. And so plotted it, but when it came time for flight computer to access it, it wasn't being responsive. I think I might have clicked something incorrectly, and so I just decided to burn manually. You see that farther orbit right there in yellow, that's Minmus, and there we are. And it's not the greatest capture. It's polar, which is, nice when you want it, but inconvenient when you don't. But since I don't plan on rendezvousing with any kind of station in the orbit above Minmus, it doesn't matter all that much because I can just return from a polar orbit. Now I'm checking my TAC life support, which is nice, it's good. I'm limiting my thrust a little bit just so I can really fine-tune that maneuver. Thrust limiter is a little hard to hit, so I'll program that into the flight computer, and that is from the remote tech mod. The flight computer is extremely useful, but remote tech is a little frustrating and very realistic. That alarm is my energy is running low, so I go and I flip the solar panel and I turn off the internal lights, trying to save some battery. As you can see there, it's draining pretty quickly. So as I'm trying to figure out what to do, I'm trying to turn things off. I was really worried at this point. I was thinking I would have to recall the mission and redesign the lander to have more battery. Uh, but I decided to just hold on through and trust in Valentina's piloting skills. And so when the capsule went dead like that, I was very nervous. I didn't want to go into the EVA view, the external view. I didn't want to do that, but here I just needed the information to check on my solar panels. And I wanted to see why they weren't getting light. I didn't quite understand. I thought it was a bug at first, and then I was thinking like, okay, if it's a bug, then maybe I can revert the flight and not be, too uncomfortable. But no, it turns out that when the reason why those lights came back on for a second was because I did a burn and the engine provided a little bit of electricity. But once it stopped burning, it quickly died out again. And as you see, I have a little bit of electricity, so I'm turning off everything I can. I wish there was a way I could turn off some of those other screens and just make everything black, just extend it. But as you see here, as I'm fast forwarding through time, I actually am gaining electric charge right up there. So what it is that the solar panels weren't facing exactly right that they should have. So that's why I lost power. And this is what's happening here too, is that as the craft goes through space, it's rotating, and sometimes the solar panels aren't facing the sun. And I only have 2 of them, so they're not as efficient as they could be. So that's why I keep losing power. Which was a little harrowing as I'm approaching the maneuver node for Minmus, but luckily I programmed in the maneuver into the flight computer when I could, and so it should be taking it automatically. Yeah, so again, I was just looking outside because I'm trying to see like what kind of energy production I'm making. I do feel okay about going in map mode, because I feel that would be one of the things that the screen has, and honestly there's only so much you can do. Some auto maneuvers with MechJeb and Astrogator, but not everything can be done. And so the other thing is that time warp is a little funky in IVA. Sometimes it has a tendency of clearing out your screen. So if you're going to do big time warps, it's better to do it in map mode. But I think as long as you keep out of the main focus of the craft, I think it's qualifies as an IVA only. So as you see, we got captured, we brought our periapsis down, and now we're going to start to use MechJeb to circularize at the periapsis, and then we're using Rotex flight computer. As you can see, we're watching our electric supply go back up, because we're on the light side of Minmus now. Minmus, not Minmus. Yeah. Alright, so just time to get our screens back on since we can afford the electricity. And once again, our electricity is depleted. I just fast forward. You can see my satellite there, keeping our connection to Kerbal. So now we're just getting ready. Do our circulation burn. And we're good. We have successfully reached and orbited Minmus. Go ahead and quick save. And plot in a maneuver to descend to the surface. So we go to our apoapsis, our periapsis, one of those. We go to the dark side of the moon, and then lower our periapsis so that way we can land in the light side. Go ahead and program that into Flight Computer. Don't need these overhead lights on. I like that sunlight's coming through the window or the viewing port. So yeah, so in map mode, time warping is just safer. You can time warp in IVA, and you'll see me do it a couple times, and I've already done it a couple times. So you can do it. It's not me saying don't ever do it, but just know that it can be a little funky sometimes. More in the mod mission control or probe mission control room, recontrol. With that, it really doesn't like time warping, but with the ASET IVA mods, which is what this mod that provides all these control panels are, with it's not as bad, but I think I've had some times where it's been not as good. So MechJam had a feature for land anywhere, and I was trying to do that, but I couldn't figure it out. And then as I'm warping to the thing, I ended up losing electricity again because of being on the wrong side. I definitely didn't bring enough batteries, that's for sure. And so go ahead and warp to the sunlight, and our charge is doing a little bit better. So now what we're doing is we're burning to land. And I wanted to land just before the greater flats so that way I could jump into the greater flats when I was done with this biome. Also, I wanted to do it pretty early because I was sure that it was flatter there. If I got too close to the Far East crater or the greater flats, sorry. If I got too close to the greater flats, I would have landed on a hill. So I just killed my horizontal velocity almost completely. So it should be coming relatively straight down. So now I'm pointing myself retrograde. What I didn't do here, which I should have, was changed it from orbit to surface, because I killed off my horizontal velocity, but then I was still at an angle. I didn't quite understand why. I didn't think about it until after the mission that I had not changed from orbit to surface. So when you see me land, I'll have a little bit of horizontal velocity, but not too much. So if you look down in the bottom left of that middle screen, you'll see the horizontal velocity is now 0.478 meters per second. And I jump it over to 8.3 or 0.83. Now you see it's at 5.2, and so I was fighting that the whole time. And I should have just switched my mode. But, you live and you learn. Or you live at any rate. So yeah, so now I'm coming down. I have just barely any fuel left. 33 meters per second of delta V in that transfer stage. I'm going ahead and put my gears out now. I can't land with them with this transfer stage on me, so I will end up jettisoning it pretty soon. I have right there. Look, there you go, and I jettisoned it. And then I didn't realize how close to the surface I was. So as you can see here, little bit of pause, and then an explosion, and I almost destroyed my own craft with that stage, so that was a little harrowing. And then finally made contact. It was such a great feeling seeing that word pop up on screen. So now time to do science. And so I brought two for myself. I was going to do two different biomes, but as I said before, time constraints kind of took over, and I was only able to land the one time. With landing on Minmus is one thing, but then hopping to another biome, you have to do it again, and so it's more challenging. But Valentina got to go out and plant her flag, talk some smack in the plaque to Jeb since she was first. So it's time to return home. We got all the science, and we have way more than enough Delta V than we need. Because again, mission got cut short, so I have no concern about getting her home. As long as we don't, screw up our maneuvers or fly off the wrong direction into space. And as long as we keep our checklist correct and make sure we do all the things correctly before re-entering Kerbin's atmosphere. That's also very important. Yeah, so go ahead and bring in the landing gears and do another set of science. Since I haven't, this is the first time in this playthrough that I've been to Minmus, so I hadn't even gotten the science flying low or science flying high or any of that stuff. I just landed. So I decided I'll grab the science flying low while I'm on my way out. There we go. I have my escape trajectory. Valentina's doing a dance, that's nice. Go ahead and quick save. I've been really enjoying playing Kerbal in first person in IVA mode. It adds a whole different challenge to it, but as I kind of explained to one person before, is that normal Kerbal you're playing as the program director of the space program. You're controlling all these different things and planning and maneuvering, but when you're in IVA mode, you're playing the astronaut. It's more than just, having control of the whole rocket and making it doing things. This is like an astronaut simulator at that point, and I think that's pretty fun. It's a way that I haven't played before, this recent time of doing it, but I've been really enjoying doing it and getting better at it and just being able to control the craft just through the instruments alone. So now I'm just bringing in my orbit to Kerbin. That little circle on the right. And I'm watching my peri-absence up there in the top left, right there. I managed to get it to 70.4 kilometers, just barely above the line. So then again, I use MechJeb and Flight Computer to program in my circularization burn. I could have just entered the atmosphere and then aero braked a couple different times and brought it down, but I have more fuel than I need, and so I decided to circularize it so that way I can have a better descent profile when I come back into the atmosphere. So there you go. Just bring that orbit in. It took a while. Just checking on all my things. What I didn't pay attention to is the apoapsis dropped during the time that I was making this burn. Not by much, just a little. And so I ended up making contact with the atmosphere. As you can see, it's at 69.7, which is in the atmosphere, and therefore atmospheric forces would then be applied to the craft, and you will see the consequences of that right here. So I go ahead and stage to get rid of my lower set. I forgot that I had stage lock on, so then I go and stage it. And as you can see, it didn't separate, and I'm trying to figure out why that is. When suddenly those aerodynamic forces took over. And I was sweating pretty hard as I'm watching that tumbling craft, and I'm trying to bring in pieces, and I'm trying to deploy the descent stage so that way our parachutes are armed and our radiators are activated and the communication and solar panels are brought in, and I was freaking out, but thankfully we managed to survive. I get my thing, I go here and I bring up the flight log. It tells me everything that happened, and nothing was destroyed on this. Everything seemed to survive. I think one of the solar panels was broke, and I think that it didn't mention it in there, but that wasn't as big of a deal because we're coming back in. We're not going to need solar panels. So yeah, the mod Real Shoot is activated, and so therefore I was able to program in the chutes arming stage into the descent action group. So the parachute's armed right now, so it will deploy automatically at the altitude that I set it at. And as you see here on the screen, nothing, no new logs, so that means that we didn't lose any parts. We had a very successful heated reentry. I do wish I had paid attention to that temperature gauge and the atmosphere gauge that's in the thing right there at the top right. You see atmosphere, the 118.5, 2.3, all that stuff. That's the information for the atmosphere, but I did not pay attention to that. I'll have to do that next time. It'd be good to keep an eye on those temperature gauges as I'm going through. But as you can see from the vessel viewer, our parachute has automatically deployed, so we are coming home. There should be enough room for, yep, it opened up at about 700 feet. So there should be more than enough room to come to a safe descent. So now, since I'm going slow enough, I decided to bring the camera back out, selfie cam, so I was assured that it wouldn't break by the aero forces. Yeah, in some of my other crafts, I've had the selfie camera be able to point downwards as well and act as a landing camera and an ascent camera, but not with this one. I didn't end up doing that. So this is basically the only view we have. We're just coming down nice and safely, 5.06 meters per second, so nice and safe. And then I bugged out a little bit and missed the contact. I missed the contact landing. I was a little bummed by that. But yeah, so time to get Valentina out, except the hatch is blocked. So we just we use our robotic arm to kind of flip ourselves. Yeah. And Valentina Kerman has been on this mission for 48 days, so I think she earned the right to stretch her legs a little bit before the rescue crew come. Let's just have her hop out a little bit. So yeah, that was an IVA mission to Minmus and back. I have another video where I do an IVA of a probe using that mission control room mod that I mentioned earlier. Link will be in the description, as well as the mods required for this mission. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.